Hello everyone, let's wait a little bit more until everyone joins us and then we'll start the session. Okay, let's start. Hello everyone, welcome to today's session, and as I said last time, today we'll start with the file reading and writing in Java. Then we will start talking about databases. It's not databases, not only in Java, but databases at all, and how to work with them using Java. And so I'm not sure if we'll manage to do it today, but this week, or maybe next week as well, we're working on the practical assignment on databases. Thank you to those of you who managed to complete the home task and share the code with me. Hopefully I'll check this week, and then we'll discuss some important points about this home tasks, maybe some common issues next week. During the session we'll go through the solution and see some points to discuss with you. Okay, so let's start. Last time we had the practical assignment on the collections. And the collections, first of all, we had the assignment to just basically do the same things we already did with arrays. Already done with arrays, but this time we needed to do the same with array list. So the concept is quite the same, with some different syntax things, how to get the elements, how to go through the elements, but mostly we already before this task we already had we can work with array lists. So basically there was just mostly repeating how can we use iterator, and how can we get the elements, and most of the things are the same we have done before. In addition, we used map structure. As you remember previously, we just, to be honest, had not done this task properly, when we just assumed that. Let me open the assignment we had. I'm not sure what was it. I think that was in strings. Just a moment, let's check. Assignment number 1 was strings. I think that was this one. Yeah. So, and when we created histogram, we assumed that the maximum length of the string is 30 characters. In this case we did not assume that it is possible to have a larger string. We just we created a logic for the strings with the length up to 30, and in this case we can have practically unlimited length of strings. So this is more flexible and more complete logic to create histogram. So as you remember, for histograms we have the values, and we want to count how many values there are with the corresponding length. And in this case we have map, when we have the key, and the key is the length of the string, and the integer is the value which represents how many elements there are with, how many strings there are with such length. And what we did, we just gone through all the strings, and check the length of the string. And after that, if there is such element already in this map structure, then we need to increment this element. So the number will be incremented by 1. Otherwise, just create new element and put 1, which means that we have, at this point, we have the only element there. And so after that we printed out histogram with the result. This was about the assignment 1, and then we had the second assignment. I put it in different package. Which package was it? It was about the grass. So in a moment. So I'm missing something, but as I remember, that was in the graph package. So one moment, let me check. It was, this one's very. I just need to expand the view. So then we had the classes. We created the classes which represent the graph. As you remember, the graph contains vertices which can be connected with the edges. So first of all we have vertex class which represents the vertices of the graph. So each vertex is, since there are several cases and different cases, how can we represent the graph? So usually we represent the graph with the vertices which have the indexes, but in this case, according to our task, we can represent the graph. So since we have the map with the cities, then we can represent the graph using the names, the vertices using the names. So for each vertex we have a city which has the name. So this is how we represent the vertex, and we also so in the vertex class we also want to store the edges which go through this particular vertex. So if the vertex is connected to another vertex with the edge, then this edge to be stored in this hash set. And then we had the setters, the one setter for the edges, setter for the name, basically not the setter but the constructor where we create the vertex, then we assign the name of this vertex to this object. Also to string to print our vertex. And compare to is needed to implement the class comparable, interface comparable. So to compare to another vertex, and we want to use it to store this vertex, to be able to store these vertices in the list or in the set, in tree set, because as you remember, for tree sets all the elements are sorted, and that's why to be able to sort we need to be able to compare the elements of the set. That's why we represent that's why we create this method compare to, and return the result which compares the vertices. In this case we just compare the strings, and this is the way how how the set of the vertices can be sorted. And then we have the edge class. This class represents the edge, and then as the attributes we have two vertices, basically just to understand between which vertices this edge is located. So nothing special here. The constructor is needed to basically construct the edge, because we know that the edges connect to vertices, so we need to provide these vertices. And then we have a full edge, and also to string to be able to print the edge. So yeah, and at the last point we have the class graph to basically store all the vertices and all the edges. And mostly nothing more is needed for the graphs. Yeah, so this is what we had, and then we created the constructor, of course, to build the graph. And for the building we used scanner, so we were able to write the data for this graph from console. And we used this approach, and then using the scanner we created our graph with the vertices and the edges. So yeah, this is what we did last time, and as I said, basically as you've seen, this was not so comfortable. As you saw, it was not so comfortable to actually fill this structure several times, especially if you let the mistake, then you just need to write from the beginning. Of course, this is not so comfortable for us to just write the same things several times, and I advised to use the files, so we can fill the content for the graph once, and just to not repeat writing this graph again and again in console. So yeah, so what will we do? We will use the files to store the edges, the vertices and the edges for this graph. But yeah, before we do it, let's start with the presentation, short presentation about the files. Yeah, I will not expand this topic. Just some basic points we need to know to be able to read the file and to write the files in Java. So first of all, that's the motivation. So why do we need working with files again? Because sometimes we need to generate the code, sorry, not the code, but the text, the text, and to store this text in file. And we also need to read this text, the content of documents, and then do some things with this content. For example, again, as I just said, we can use it for the graph, so we can fill all these data, all the connections in the text file, or in we'll see a little bit later in for example, CSV file, or just any other types of such text files. And then using the files we can read the linkage, or these linkages, this graph from the file, or from several files as well. So yeah, this is what we want to do. And basically, when I talk about text documents, we'll mostly work with text documents using the files. But basically, when I say text documents, I don't only mean the TXT documents, which are just simply text documents. You can write a notepad, for example, the notepad or any other text editor. So here you can write the text. text, for example, so text with multiple lines, and so on. So not only with I'm talking about not only this simple text documents, but also about CSV files. For example, if you work with Excel documents, let me open. So here you have the text documents. So there's, for example, column 1, then we have column 2 and column 3. Yeah, then I have value 1, for example. Then I have value 1, 2, value 1, 3, and so on. So we have multiple rows. The content may be something different, but it doesn't really matter for us. So I have Excel file, and so here's the point to understand. Excel type, so let's maybe first of all save the Excel document. So this Excel document. So this is text document, Excel document, that it has the type XLSX. So this is not a simple text file. Yeah, and we can see it if we open it from using text editor, for example. Using, for example, text notebook, you'll see that we have some strange content, which, of course, if we read it as text, we cannot really understand what is actually the content here. But if we do the same with CSV tab, this one, yeah, there are two mostly used tabs, CSV and CSV UTF-8. For Latvian language, we mostly need to use CSV-8. And so if we don't have the CSV file, and if we open this file using text document, you'll see that we have quite meaningful content with all the columns and all the values right here. So with this file, we can actually work normally as this text file. The same as for XML file. Let me open one quickly. Find it. Open XML file. It's yeah, so I have an XML document. So yeah, just to have it normally parsed. So here's the XML document. Yeah, maybe some of you already work with such types of documents. So we have the structure. If we use example Internet Explorer, or I think if we use Chrome, that should also be fine. Moments. I think. Okay, yeah, doesn't matter. So yeah, maybe just simply if we use Internet Explorer or just any other browser, I guess that should normally you should normally see how the document looks like, and with all the elements and all the sub elements. Yeah, and if we open it as a text file, we will see that this also looks pretty understandable for us. Yeah, with all the elements and all the texts normally stored here. The same as with JSON files, also used for the data. let me open my JSON file. Yeah, so I think I have one. Yeah, maybe let's try to open it using Internet Explorer. Not sure if, okay, this one being opened, but okay, yeah, maybe if you are familiar with JSON, yeah, so this is how the JSON file looks like. Also the text, also there are the elements which can be parsed and read in some way, right? And also HTML documents. Moment with me. Yeah, usually if you open, I think I have one example. One moment, I will quickly show you. Yeah, so I have. Yeah, so we have XML documents. If we open them using just, for example, any browser, then we will just get some content, yeah, some web content. In the same way, we can open it then using any text editor. Then this time I'll use Notepad++. It is parsed, but yeah, that's maybe not so interesting for us. Let's open it using just a simple Notepad. One moment. Yeah, then we can also see that basically the structure is, yeah, maybe for those who haven't worked with XML, with HTMLs, is not so familiar, but basically all the texts, all the things are here. Yeah, it is not translated to any binary or something like that, so it's understandable for us, and in fact we can work with such text. Yeah, also there are different other types of text documents, but maybe these are the documents we mostly work with, and such similar documents. So yeah, before we work with the files, what we need to know and to understand, and the things to understand. First of all, text Unicode, and as I just, as an example, let's. This is, I think this would be a real useful example. For example, if we have Latvian text, for example, we have Latvian text with Latvian characters, not so many Latvian special characters. Maybe I'll type some more characters just to understand. And just for you to make it more understandable. Different places. Yeah. So yeah, and now let's save it using CSV type. Yeah, so as I previously shown you, there are two types of CSV files in Excel. There's UTF-8 and simple CSV. So if we save it using simple CSV, file, we save it using simple CSV, then close it, then if we open it using text, yeah, so if we open it using the text document, you can see that some characters are missed. And that's because we saved it using default CSV format, and as I remember, by default there is there are English characters mostly, and non-Sh is allowed, but other characters are not allowed, and this may be the problem. Yeah, if you work with the files, not only in programming but in general. So be usually careful when you save in such formats like CSV. or any other text formats, because you may lose the data. So be careful, and in this case what we need to do, let's create CSV file. Again, I'll type some characters. And I will save it using not CSV but CSV UTF-8. And what we can see now, now everything is fine. That's because the unicoding is different. And what we can see here, we can see that here the file is saved as with Unicode UTF-8, and this one was saved using ANSI Unicode. Okay, this is the thing need to be careful when we work. And then the next one is path to the file. We need to know what's the place the file is stored. Of course, if you work with console, for example, then you have usually have current directory. For example, and then you have current directory, and if you are on the current directory, the same as in Eclipse, basically the place the file is stored. For example, you run the file from one place, and then at this place you assume that all the files you provide the path to are located in this current place, so in documents. If you don't provide any specific path, but just the name of the file, then it's fine. The program understands it that the path is the current folder. If you want to just to navigate the file which is located somewhere else, then you need to provide the full path. Just maybe for this particular file, this would be a copy address. Just let me pass it somewhere here. So this will be the address, and then also add name of the file. So this will be the address to this file. Just the full path, using all the folders, all the subfolders, and then in the end the name of the file. One thing to note that just only in Windows we have these slashes from left to right, not from top to bottom. On Windows, in Unix-like systems, we have such slashes on the opposite side. So this is also a thing to be careful with. If you work on Unix-like system, and mostly if you work with some servers, because most of the servers are based on Unix. And then you need to use the slash which goes from bottom to top on the right side, basically. Alright, so this is about the path. Then of course you need to understand the structure of the document. If you work with if you have the files which are CSV files, then of course that's not the same if you just work with XML files or JSON files, because each file type has its own structure, and basically why the extensions for the files are needed, just for the parsers, for the programs to understand what's the type of the file and how to work with it, because basically all the files have the content may be displayed using again, as I said, using the text editor. But again, for example, if we have CSV file, then the program understands that, okay, this is the file with the extension CSV. Then I can open this file in this way. If I have the file with the extension, again, for example, Excel, then I need to work with it in different way. So if I have HTML, then I know all the tags here, and I understand how to open this file, how to show the content of this file, and so on. So based on the extension, let's have this point here. But yeah, based on the extension, we understand the content, how the content may be understood, and at which position, and how to understand at which position some elements are located, and what we can do with these elements. And yeah, the last point here is, for example, for CSV files, so just shown here. Shown here, we have the columns and we have the rows, and we have the separators for the columns. So using them not only for the columns, but yeah, mostly we use for the columns to understand what is the separator, at which when we reach the separator, then it means that we reach the next column. So we go column by column, and when we reach separator, it means that we are, for example, we go from here, so we go character by character, and next character, next character, next character, and then we reach the for example, in this case that's comma, can be in a different separator. Then it means that we are on the second column. Then we go ahead, and we reached the separator. It means that now we are on the next column, and so on. Yeah, and this in Windows this is defined in a little bit strange way. How to determine which separator is used for Excel files. We can search quickly how to navigate to it in Google. So there is the path how to change the separator. So one moment, so this one. Delimiter separator. I think this one is the right one. Yeah, so we can check in Google how to change the delimiter, and I will show you as well here. So it goes settings, to the settings, and then yeah, that's related to regional settings. Yeah, region settings. This one, I think. Moments. There should be the regional formatting. Take time. Oh yeah, I think that was this one. And then yeah, we have number formats. I think that then we need to go to additional settings. Yeah, and under additional settings we have this. You can choose decimal symbol. Yeah, because we know that in some cases decimal numbers are written like for example, 1.23, and mostly in Latvian language we use 1 comma something. So that can also be defined under customized format. Yeah, I will share the link with you so you can check it yourself. So here is the list separator. This is the one used for Excel, for CSV files, and this is basically why when I created CSV files, then the commas were used here. So not here, and right here. So here, that's why the commas were used here, because it is defined here. So these are the system settings. And some special settings in Eclipse. And yeah, the separators are needed for the program to understand how to split the columns. The same as Excel uses the same approach. So there are the separators, and then using these separators, delimiters, the program can understand that we are on the next column. And let's move to Java. How we work with text files in Java. Mostly we need to use package Java input output, Java IO package, and the main files needed for us, the files which work with input and output streams, and then we'll not go deep about these terms, but to basically work with them we need to use file class, which basically represents the file as the object. And then we use readers, buffer reader and file reader. We can also use other types of readers. A moment, I will share. I'll share one link with you where you can check. This one, where you can check. This will be this one. Yeah, there are different classes related to Java input-output. Yeah, most of them can be used, and we can also select different options. Yeah, some of them has differences with each other, but in our case we will not go deep with all these files, or all these types, all these classes. We can use one approach and then just to stick with it. There's no specifications. Yeah, so for reading we'll use buffer reader and file reader classes. Usually we read content line by line. So we go by line, and then so we have the for example again in this case we have the first line. So the program goes line by line, then it reaches the end of the line, right here, and then we usually go to the next line. So we work just working one by one, line by line again. Okay, so this is here, and the file writer. We can use it to write the file. We'll see how can we do it. And so here's the code example. The steps needed here are, first of all, we need to read the file. We need to know the file path. It is also possible, I'll not show it this time, but it is also possible to know the directory. And then using the directory we can just read all the files located there. It is also possible to do it, but just maybe the most straightforward way. Semicolon is missing. Okay, just maybe the most straightforward way is to know the file path. So we, for example, can research something like this, and then we provide the path, and using the path we can create a file object. The file as the object. And then what we can do, so now we have the file object, we want to read the content of this file. And in this case such the strange construction is used, but yeah, so this buffer reader is mostly related to the stream, and file reader is related to actually get the stream. So yeah, we provide the file object to a file reader, and then we can also provide, it's not mandatory, but if we work with the files in Latvian language, for example, then we need to use this unicoding and to understand which helps the program to understand the characters used there. And at this point we have reader object, which can be used to read the content of the file. And then what we do, we go line by line. We start with the first line. Using read line, we can read each line of the text file. And yeah, we go line by line. We yeah, in this case I use string builder because I want to construct the string. Yeah, if you want to, using the code, if you want to generate a string, as I told you once, it's better to use string builder or string buffer because it's more efficient for the strings. Then again, like in this case, if you have line by line, then we read first line, then we read the second line, and we just append each line to the content, to the string. We use string builder, append first line, second line, third line, and so on. And then we actually construct the string. At the end, we have the string builder, a string buffer with all the lines inside, and we can just simply convert it to string. So at this point we will have file content. And as an example, let's read this file. So I will create a package. I will name it like files in Java because just to not mix it with some default Java classes. So yeah, I will create the class file read example. And yeah, let's try to read the class. Try to read the class and just shown to you. So first of all, as I said, we need to use input-output package. We can import it directly, or we can just import classes one by one. It's not so important for us. So first of all, yeah, I will create the class. And the path would be cursory. So what I do, I usually copy address from here. Then I can paste it. And yeah, these are escape characters. Don't worry, we have double characters to double slashes to escape, to use them as escape character. So here I have my CSV file, and yeah, first of all, as I said, we need to create Java object, Java file object. So I will create it, and then I create a file object and provide the path to this object. So this is the first step. Next step would be to use buffer reader. And here I create new buffer reader, and I need to provide input. So I will use file reader. And here I create new buffer reader, and I need to provide input. So I will use file reader. So I will use file reader. And I need to provide input. So I will use file reader. And yeah, here I will provide file, and also I will provide the character set to this one, show which kind of characters we can use in this file. And yeah, this also must be imported. Yeah, from neo charset, charset, and we'll use UTF. And yeah. So first of all, it shows that yeah, for some we haven't talked about the exceptions yet, but for some classes we must handle for some method constructors or methods we must handle exception, and maybe the easiest way for us would be if we handle it using throws and input output exception. It means that this method will throw this input output exception. And again, we haven't talked about exceptions yet, but to use this buffer we need to add this throws input output exception. I will talk a little bit later what does this mean. But in this case we just simply need to write it and to be able to use it. At the end it also shows that we need to close the reader, the same as for the scanner, we need to close it. So I'll put this code at the end. And right now we can work, we can read the content of the file. So again, as I said, I'll use string buffer or string builder. Yes, maybe just okay, maybe not confuse you. Let's use string builder. So I'll create a string builder, a string buffer, and so let's start reading the content. So I want it to read content. So we start with the first one. So, and yeah, so I use reader and I read next line. And yeah, to go through all the lines, the easiest way would be to use while. And so we have the loop while y not equals null. Because again, when we go through all the lines, when we basically reach, we finish reading the file, at the end we have nothing, so it means that it will stop, not stop at this point, but it will return null, so it means that we reached the end of the file. And yeah, that's why we check if y not equals null, and so since we know that this is not null, we can append it to our final result, which will be string builder. So we appended the line, and then we read next line. We can use again read line, read next line. So this will be the first one, read first line, and check if we haven't reached the end of the file. Basically, null means that no more content, no more lines. And here we append the line to our final result. Yeah, we can call it as final result. Final result. Okay, so this is basically this is practically it to read the content, and at the end yeah, and at the end we can print the file and see what is the result for us. Print 1, and yeah, so we convert string dot to string and we print the result. And using the string we can show the output. So let's run and see. Oh yeah, so what we have, it just printed all the lines without the separation. Yeah, it basically means that we also need, at the end of the line, we also need to add the line separator. Yeah. So in the system, line separator. Also need to add the line separator to go to the next line. That's also maybe needed, especially in some cases. And yeah, so this is what we have. Not sure why the question mark is at the beginning. Oh yeah, I also used line separator here. Yeah, so basically here we have the file. I'm really not sure why the question mark is on the first place. It's a little bit strange, but yeah, all the other stuff is correct here. Moment, let me quickly check. Excel document, if we open it, yeah, so there's no question mark. It's a little bit strange why the question mark is here. Yeah, it's still here. Okay, yeah, but except this question mark, everything else seems correct. So we have the file with the content. This is related to the file saving. Yeah. It's not related to Java code. Java code is correct. Okay, maybe let's read any other file, for example this one. So the question mark is still here. Oh yeah, that's because the question mark should. Oh no, that's just because the content is such type. There's such content. So let's read this one and oh yeah, the question mark is still here. It's a little bit strange why the question mark is here. Let me quickly open another example of CSV file. For example, this one. Oh yeah, so yeah, this is related to the files I just recently used. Yeah, for example, yeah, for my previous file, CSV files, everything is fine. So this is the way how we can read the files in Java. Basically, what we have here, we have the string. So this is located. We can use this as the string. Yeah, so we have the string at the end of each line. We have a line separator. Yeah, so this is this one. And basically, so we have the content of the file. We can work with it as we want. We can go through all the content here and read it, and basically do all the actions we want to do. Okay, so this is about the reading. You can write the question, but I will answer it after the break. Yeah, so during the break you can write the questions, any questions you want to ask, and you can briefly ask him. But right now, let's have the break, and after the break, we will continue. Okay, so let's move on. And regarding the question from Mike, can we add all extra codes as we want in Java and it will show it in file as file text? I'm not really sure what do you mean, to be honest here. So I mean that we can open Java files as the text in Java, or what? I'm not really sure. What have you meant here? Basically, I mean we can read all the text files simply using using such code. Yeah, and Java files as well. Yeah, for example, if we can also read, for example, Java file as well as the text. If you mean this way, we can also run the program. Oh yeah, we need to provide the full pass. 1 moment. This one. And also Java. So if I write the files to Java file, it should also, yeah, we can also read Java code. But my I mean, if we add file with some basic information, can we add some extra? Yeah, we can also write extra file. Yeah, this is yeah, we can. Yeah, first of all, again, we have the string, so we can work with it as with a simple string. We can add some more info to the string. We can process it as we want. And in addition, we can also change the files. Yeah, this would be the next. This would be the next thing we have today about how to write into the files. So we can also change the content of the files. Yes, we can add extra info. Yeah, that's definitely what we can do. We can add extra information to the files. So yeah, maybe just first of all, let's see how can we create new files. Then we'll also see how can we change the files. So create files. And then to create the files, this is practically even more simple. Yeah, we'll copy the code. We also need to input output, and also add the separators. But yeah, we can add more info as we want. So yeah, we have file writer, and then we have the content. The content maybe let's start with one line, and we can write this one line from the using the scanner. Why not, for example? Yeah, maybe let's just make it shorter. Let's this way. Let's call the scanner at the end. So, and also need to handle input output exception. Okay. So I'll write the content. Console. So the program is terminated. And let's navigate to to the folder. So in here we have text file with the content. So new file is created. So, and about the changing the content of the file, I can run the content and let me correct if I replace the content. Let's see what we have. So you can see the new content is added. And basically, how can we change the content? So the easiest way would be if we combine, maybe let's use it as the next example. But again, about the writing content, this is quite simple. But, what we can do, in addition to this, for example, we can, as I said, we can build the string. So if we can build the string, we can build any text content. And just maybe to make it more differently. Yeah, let's do it this way. Let's write until we type some special character from the console. For example, finish and we set it false. While finish is false, so while not finish, we will do it this way. I will build the string. I'll build the string. Build the string text file. So we'll go line by line, and in fact, we can do differently, but okay, maybe let's just not confuse you. Let's use this. This approach. So here I will read the line from the console, and so if and I will write the lines until I type, for example, F. If I type F letter, then let's assume that we want to finish this writing. So if let's maybe to make it more. No, let's just use F. So if y is A, if we type F, it means that we want to finish. Yeah, and at the end we can pass the string to this writer. So here we provide the name. The name can be any name we want. We want to use. Yeah, so this will be actually the name of the file. And yeah, so let's the content. So here is the first. Oh, sorry, no. Before we continue, let's also. I forgot to. First of all, I forgot to append to the string buffer, and also need to append line separator, of course. So that should be correct. first one, go to the next, this is the second one, content is some content, and the third one, and yeah, maybe we'll finish with F, and then the input will be finished. So here I have the file, and we have all the content we just written here. Now line by line we finished with F. Maybe what we can do, we can maybe swap that and put it under our statement. Then F will not be yeah, so here we built actually we built the content file. And at the end we got. So this is about file creation, and basically to this point we want to reach the string, we want to construct the string, and once the string is constructed we can write the string to the file. So the structure is quite simple, and then we can also change the file. Change the file. Example maybe. Yeah. To change the file, what we can do, basically we can read, then we can modify the content, and then we can write this content. So to change, we can read the file, read the content. Modify this content, and then write replace basically, and this will be more correct. Replace previous content is new content. So this will be the first step. We want to read the file. So I'm just simply copy the code from here. And also copy the import. It's already here. Oh yeah, and also need to throw the exception, of course. And so yeah, here I can store the file content. Yeah, I can store it here. But since I need to but okay, that should be okay. So this is the first step. We read it, the file content. Then I can just I can append one line, for example. So I will maybe let's not use the file content in separate string, because we want to modify string, and since we want to modify the string, it would be better if we keep using string buffer string or string buffer. And so yeah, I'll put down the line. Yeah, first of all I will oh no, I just okay, the while appended. And yeah, then I will use file writer. I will use file writer. I will provide file pass. File pass. And yeah, so then I will add new content. One moment, so let me think. One moment, let me think. Yeah, I can write. But yeah, okay. In addition, yeah, that's one option we can write. We can write. Write the full content of the file, but yeah, okay, maybe let's execute this file. So we can execute it. Ui, sorry, that's the wrong one. Sorry, that's the wrong file. Sorry, my fault. Let's use this file. Just build it next. Okay, let's see what do we have here. So I do it warning. Oh, okay, we also need to let's pause the writer. So and not again. But okay, this works, but so I just changed the file name. Wait, that's again, that's the, oh wait, sorry, that's the different, sorry, that's different, that was different, that was different class, sorry, this one is correct, maybe it would be better if I close this file. So let's execute again, and you can see that the line is appended. Yeah, this would be this approach. If we want to really modify the content from the beginning to the end, then we can use this approach. In addition, in a different way, what we can do, maybe let's comment out this code, and let's write different code. Keep pass, and I also keep, but no, I don't use string builder. So we have option append. I'm not sure if I can add. Let's append it. I can append this thing as well. So let's execute it. So everything is fine. Let's see. And yeah, so in this case, if we cannot use just simple append, because this will simply rewrite the file. So if we want to, so don't use append. If you want to just modify the content, then it would be better if we read the file, and then at the end, so we have the content. We modify and we decode it. So basically, yeah, that's how it works. we can modify, we can change, and basically we can read the content and we can work with the content. Alright, so that's about file reading. This is the option we can use, and just a quick way we can use it is in the assignment about the collections, about the graphs we used. We worked last time this one. So here, just to not write everything from console, what we can do, we can simply read the file and create the graph from the file. So first of all, let's maybe I'll use the same folder we used for this assignment from here, and I will create a text file which will represent the map of the flight center. So I will name it flight map, and using the text file we can describe this graph. So first of all, I will type the number of the elements we have, the number of the vertices we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 9 vertices as I see them. So we have 9 vertices. So this will be the element on the first place. And after that, we'll provide the edges. So we have Cape Town. This way, Cape Town, and then I will use dash, and the font is to PE. And we have, maybe I'll use the semicolon as the separator, and to separate each. No, maybe let's use commas. And that's up to us. We can use semicolon, we can use commas. That's should be fine. And we will use dashes to just separate two vertices. Well, no, maybe first let's start with vertices themselves. So we have Cape Town, and then maybe now let's separate them one by one. Yeah, so at first one we will have vertices. So we have Cape Town, then we have PE, then we have Derps, then there's Java-13, and Mauritius, then Hungary, then we have Livingstone, then we have Victoria Falls, Woodhook, and that's it. That's it for the vertices. So we defined all the vertices here. Okay, yeah, I want two spaces. From here as well. Yeah, and here I will define the edges. So we have Cape Town PE, then we have Cape Town Derps, then we have Cape Town space, Cape Town to Geelburg. And we have PE to Derps, then we have Derps to Geelburg, Then we have to go to no issues. We have, just copy paste. Jailbreak to Hunter. Jailbreak to Livingstone. Then we have jailbreak to Victoria Falls. Then we have jailbreak to Rent. And that's it. Okay, so now we have the text file which defines us the graph. So we can work with this text file. Now we know the structure of the file, how the structure looks like, so we can work with it. So to do it, I will change the constructor of graph. And maybe I will write it differently. I will provide the file path to the graph. File path to the constructor. And yeah, some logic I will copy from here. Sorry, not from here. I will copy the file reader from the logic we've written so far. So moment. Java. Example, so just basically copy paste the code we have here. So yeah, first we have the file. The file, I also need to throw the exception. Exception, I will use reader and I will close reader again. At this point we don't need to build the string because we just want to read the content line by line, so I will not use string builder, but I will need to work with the lines. So yeah, create all the comments we had before. So yeah, in this case, turn off the file, so we can maybe write the structure. First line, number of the vertices, and second line, names of the vertices. And you know, we don't even need the first one. I just noticed these files. We don't actually need the first line because we don't need, because we can just determine number of vertices from the second line. So yeah, maybe I will skip this one. So first line, names of the vertices, and the second line, the edges. So yeah, now we go line by line. Let's do it. So we read the first one. Yeah, practically we don't need this iterator because we know there are two lines. Since we have two lines, we need to iterate through the lines. Yeah, we just assume that we know there are two lines, so we will work with them. then this will be line 1 and line 1, and this will be line 2. Line 2. So yeah, using the first line, we determine, there are the vertices. So what we can do, we can get the vertices. And so this will be the array of strings. This is names. And what we can do, we can split the line at commas. Split the line, and we get the array of the vertices, of the names of the vertices. And so again, we split this line by comma, so we will have the array of Cape Town. So basically it has one value, then it is comma, then there's next value, then there's comma, next value, comma, next value, and so on. So the line will be split by commas into the array. And on the second, the same is basically the second one. We will split the edges, and we'll split the second one also at comma. Oh, sorry. Wait. Here. Okay. So now we have the array of the vertices. Okay. Each vertex will be stored there, and then the array of the edges. So each edge will be stored there. And right now, let's create the objects of the vertices and the objects of the edges. So I will use loop for first of all, I need to have the number, as I said, I need to have the number of the vertices. So what can I do? In fact, I don't really need this number of vertices. I just need to go through all the vertices. So then we can use for each, and then each vertex has the string. So that will be vertex name, and go through all the vertices. And here I can copy the logic from here. This one. So I will put the vertex name. I'll create the vertex and put it to the collection of to the map of vertices. Oh, and I don't need. Okay, this is the first step. Then the second step was to go through all the edges. So I will use this. I will use for each as well. Okay, so I have string edge. Edge content I will call it. And from the edges. And here I will copy this logic again and modify it a little bit. So without any outputs we won't need them. No need for next line. So next, so as we know, the structure of the edges in the file is vertex, then we use dash vertex 1, then we have vertex 2. So we need to get the name of the first vertex and then the name of the second vertex. So then again I will need to split this edge, so I will split the edge, current edge, this will be edge content, and I will split it at position So here we have the array of two vertices. Choose the first element vertex 1, the second element vertex 2. So we just put this string at basically in the middle. Yeah. So this and so name 1 would be the first element, and name 2 would be the second element. So then we want to print anything. And yeah, so here we basically do all the stuff. And is that it? Yes, I guess so. And we can provide the pass. We can do it using the scanner. We can write maybe else. Let's do it using the scanner. Just that would be easier for us. So I will provide path from the console. Next one, I think I will also close the scanner. Yeah, okay, so right now let's ask user to file name file pass. Okay, then this will be here, and the file pass is this one. Copy as address, I paste it here, and the name of the file. Something is wrong, so we need to understand where it is. So that's because of this place. So let's see what can be the issue here. The issue may be that something is missed or wrongly spelled. Let's quickly check. Oh yeah, I think that this one is, yeah, this one is maybe the issue, because I used to be in uppercase. Let's check it now. Okay, still there's the issue. Okay, maybe misspelling. So let's quickly check again. So this will be in the second line, and the first line. One moment. Okay, so if we can't understand it, we need to debug. We need to debug and see where the issue may be. Okay, so I will debug and search for the issue. That's absolutely unusual case. So we type breakpoint and we debug for the code. So we are here, name 2. Let's check what are the names. PE, Cape Town, seems correct. Cape Town PE, that's correct. Then we have I'm not so comfortable to work with such display resolution. Okay. Let's see. So we have Cape Town. Then we have Dorbs. Okay, that's correct. Then we have name 1, name 2. That's and here is the problem. Oh no, sorry, not here. Cape Town, Gilbert. Oh, everything is fine here. Okay. This is not the issue. Anyway, let's go to the next one. PE, derps. Seems correct, okay. So let's see what we have here. Derps and Gilbert. Seems correct, okay. No issues at this point. Let's go to the next one. Gilbert, malicious. Seems correct as well. No issues here. At this point, Gilbert Carrera. No issues again. Let's see what we have here. Gilbert Livingstone. No issues. Let's go next. Gilbert Victoria Falls. Vertex. Vertexes are found. Seems so. Okay, no issues. Then we have Gilbert and Windhoek. And yeah, here we can see that Vertex 2 is not found. Here we'll have the issue. So what does it mean? It means that we have misspelled Windhoek in one or another place. Windhoek. Or one moment. I think, yeah, I know what's maybe the issue. Moment, let's see. Windhoek. Okay, I think I got it. One moment. Yeah, the problem is that this is at the last position. It's located at the last position, so it means that we also, I assume that we also read the line separator and we entered it as the key, or not. One moment. Oh yeah, so we have the space at last position. Moment. Oh yeah, you see, we have space here, and we have the space here, and that's why we have the issue. All right, so now we found the problem. We had the space. Yeah. Also, be careful with the spaces, because the spaces also are considered as the characters. So let's check it now. Yeah, no issues now. No issues now, and it seems that everything is correct. There are 10 direct flights. Yeah, there should be 10 direct flights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So all the things from here seems to be correct. Yeah, so as you remember last time we just typed everything from console. The same way we can just write everything once in this text file. Then we can use this text file and process all the data from here. So yeah, that's how we can work with text files. Yeah, we have the content, using the content. Especially if we know the structure of the file, then we can just access all the content and work with this content. Okay. Any questions about the approach we used here? Okay, then I can give you time to prepare questions if you have. So right now we have the break. So during the break, if you find any questions, please ask, and I will answer after the break. Now let's have the break. Okay, let's continue. So yeah, that's how can we work with the files, especially if we know the structure of the files. So right now let's move on. And yeah, last time I said that we will quickly discuss the home task about Java collections. So that will be one task only. Let me open it. A moment. Practical assignments. And this is data structure. this one. So there's one task. Should not be problematic. Basically, there are two types of hashing, hash map and hash table. You can take a look on them. Structure, we already work with maps, also with hash maps. So hash tables are similar. There's similar structure. Let's quickly open the Oracle documentation. Yeah, the structure is the same as for the maps. And there's key and the value. So we can basically work the same way as with the hash maps, but with some small differences. And some small differences from a mostly technical point of view. And that one would be what would be next Friday. Right? Next Friday, so 1 week. And, so a little bit more than 1 week. And right now, as we can see in calendar, we are not approaching, but kind of approaching the end of the course. So starting next week, there will be 3 weeks remaining. But and we will also have last 1.5 week to be used for final assignment for you, which will be working groups. I will explain a little bit later about it. But yeah, so we also will need to do it. So that's why we have not so much time left. So yes, we'll need to manage to complete all the things. But okay, this will be next one. So hash maps, some tasks, create some tasks here related to hash maps and hash tables. First is create a hash map for the product price page where all products will be as key and the price as the value. So the products you may store them as strings. You don't need to create some complicated structures here. You can use strings. And keys can be not integers, but doubles or floats as you want. Let's save, create 8 products and place them hash map. Find out how many products are under €1. So need to use iterator, get values and use iterator. Yeah. So then find out which product price is the lowest, again using iterator, largest, same using iterator. I need to create new hash map with other products. So create new object, new variable with new object, and then merge both and print out how many products are in merged hash map. So can do it. Then sort all values in ascending order. So we can use the same algorithm, for example, bubble sort. If you want to use any other algorithm, you can do it as well. So we already talked about sorting algorithms, and just then do the same steps with hash table. Alright, so we start working on this. Any questions, you can briefly ask me. We can discuss the questions together as well in the next sessions. So this will be home task. Alright, so yeah, right now we finish with Java files, with structures, and the next one will be intro in the databases. Okay, so let's start talking about databases. It's a very interesting topic and a very useful topic for the programming, for the software engineering in general. So yeah, first of all, what is the database? and basically the motivation. Why do we need a database? Just maybe the most simple example would be just we have the website, for example. Let me open any website, like for example CNBC, and there are the news here. So basically, what's the idea? The idea is that we have the website, and right here we have the structure. The structure is fixed, kindly fixed. We have the options to select on the top, for example, here, but this is the fixed content. Yeah, this is the fixed content which will remain the same if I enter to this website right now, or if I do it tomorrow. And of course, if basically non-development is done, then if no code is changed, then nothing is changed, and nothing will be changed here. Yeah, we'll have the same content here with no changes. But this is not related to the database. But for example, if we talk about the news, so here there are the news. Then if I go to this website tomorrow, for example, then I'll see different news. So this is changing content, and basically about regarding new news. Of course, we cannot code these news or just simply put them somewhere, not put them, but to write them as the code. Yeah, it's obvious we cannot do it. And we all know that news come time by time, yeah, like every minute, every second, and so on. So basically the idea is that these news must be stored somewhere. And this place should be the place where we can first store, and secondly we can change, we can delete all these news for basically any changing content. For example, the news, then this can be some statistics, yeah, the indexes here, the news, what else? Basically all the content which changes time by time. Mostly about the news. News come every minute, for example, or every second. Then the content changes. So this is not a static content, like this one. And this one is written in the code, so it is fixed. So it is in this place. But if we talk about the content which changes like every minute, for example, then the idea is that this must be stored somewhere in the place where we can where the content may be changed based on the user on the changes done by user, because users don't usually write the code, they just enter new news, for example, or just any new stuff which changes time by time. So the idea is that we need to store this data somewhere. For example, user data. If new user is created, then this user must be stored somewhere. So basically need the place where to store the data which is not fixed, which can be changed, which changes time by time. And then this can be the news, some statistics, some data, basically every data you can imagine, which changes time by time. So we need to store it somewhere, and that's why the databases. Basically, this is why we have databases. This is basically the place where this data is stored. So each database has the structure, so the structure can be organized in a different way. But the idea is that we need to store the data. So there's so-called database management system, which is basically the software for creating and managing databases. And the storages the relations, because then there can be statistics. For example, if we talk about the stocks, then we have some statistics about the stocks. For example, the indexes. Indexes are based on the stock prices. We have multiple stocks, for example. Then, based on these stocks, the values are combined. First, the values are collected from different places, and then the value of the index is calculated, for example. So basically, we have multiple places from where we want to read the data. So we read the data, then we combine, we link the data in between the places. So yeah, data can be used, and also there are different systems of database. There may be some most popular are MySQL, PostgreSQL, basically SQL databases, Oracle as well. Then there are so-called document databases like Mongo database and other databases as well. Graph database, never use such. But yeah, so there are different types of databases. We will use MySQL. Yeah, it's quite popular database, and from my point of view, it's easy to use it. So we will see how to, and of course SQL syntax is quite popular, used to access the database. Yeah, so basically let's start with so-called relation database management system. It's based on the relationship data model where there are tables and links between them. So we have multiple tables. So yeah, as I said, I forgot to mention that databases are the tables. So there are different tables with the data stored, and basically all these tables are stored with the data, are stored in the database. And maybe quickly, just to show you, I'll show you my database. So yeah, I have the database for my website. So here's the database. Let's open it. This is SQL database, MySQL. So yeah, here I have database. I have the tables. So each table has the structure. For example, it's always a simple table. So I have the structure of the table. So here there are the fields, the columns and the fields, product ID, customer ID. So we have the structure of the table. Yeah, we have the structure. And here there are key values, the fields which are the key fields. So it means that if we have so the chain of product ID and customer ID must be unique, and this can be any value. So these the key is built using these two fields. So they must so the combination of these two fields must be unique, and then the value can be any value. So we have the structure of the table, and then we have the content of the table. So here is the content of this table. Okay, so this is how the database looks like. And yeah, it's also said there are the relations, so there can be relations in between the tables. And at the end, we have the relation that allows us to work with the data. For example, the website, yeah, multiple tables used. For example, one table can be used to store the the IDs of the news. Then another table is the text table. First table, one table is table which stores the content in English, then the second table another table can be used to store the content in different language, for example in Spanish, and so on. So we have different tables. Maybe we may have different tables for different languages, for example, but all of them are linked to the same news, in fact. But the texts are different. And yeah, as I said, maybe I'm not sure which one is the most popular, but SQL is, at least from my experiences, most used type of the database. So yeah, what is it? This is the database. So database SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So yeah, this is basically the language how we can access it. Yeah, so it was created in 1970, so long time ago, by American scientists Donald Chamberlain and Raymond Boyce. So since 1986, SQL is a part of NASA and ISO standards. Structured query language, programming language for working with relation on databases. For example, basically everything in databases is done using the SQL. And so here's the example. Select the star means select everything, everything from database table discounts. Here's the table. Here is the SQL query. And if I copy the same code in SQL, I can type that. And it will return me the result. So this is basically the language which allows me to work with the database. And I can, using the queries, I can create the database with specific structure. I can change the content of the database. So basically, everything what I can do in the database, I can do it by writing the SQL queries. So yeah, this is what we can do. Create, modify objects in database. We can basically create the database using SQL query. We can migrate the databases using SQL queries. So basically, yeah, we can change the modules, we can adjust the modules, and the keys, everything, using the SQL queries. Yeah, permissions can be changed as well. For databases, the transaction management can be done using SQL, and basically almost everything in SQL databases. And yeah, here's the popularity of SQL scripting. Basically, it's not programming languages in my point of view. That's scripting languages, query language, scripting query language, which basically allows us to ask the database to do some things. Yeah, for example, from my point of view, programming language such like Java or JavaScript, HTML is not the programming language. Okay, never mind. There are so many memes about HTML as the programming language. Most programmers don't think that HTML is programming language, and I think so. That's basically HTML. It's the format which defines the structure of the document, not any code. But okay, that's not so important. SQL, that's the query language. But again, from my point of view, we can also define SQL as the programming language, because in some cases we can build very, very serious and complicated logic using SQL. But okay, that's a different question. So yeah, it stands on the third place of the languages used, and that's That's true because basically databases are used everywhere. Any software we work with use the databases, because it's practically not possible to work without the database. Except if we just do some basic queries, and then we can, in some case, we can skip using SQL. But if we have the program, if we have the website, if we have the application, if we have basically any software, then database to basically store any data. We have user data stored in databases. So then we need to have database, and to access database we need to use SQL. That's why it is so popular. So using SQL we access the database. And here there are tools that can be used working with databases. So there's so-called Oracle SQL Developer, SQL Plus, SQL Developer, again, PL SQL Developer, PG Admin for PostgreSQL, SQL Server Management Studio. So many tools. I usually use PHP Admin, and this is basically what I'm showing you here for most database, especially for the web development. So this is local, my local development. The same would be if I go to my actual website. Let me quickly show you. Login. Login. I will show you the place where my website is stored, and you'll basically see where the database is located, the management of database is located. And then I will open the control panel. So I have my website. Here. I have database. It's MySQL. Let's type MySQL. And here I can navigate to PHP MyAdmin. And go inside, and basically here's practically the same as I have in my local. It may be a little bit different, but the features are the same. I have the database, it's the structure, where I can write SQL, and so on. So this is PHP Admin. I usually use it, and that's what I can use to access the databases on my website. And there's also such thing like entity relationship diagram that allows us to show the relationship in between the different databases. So there can be one-to-one relationship, like if we have for example, address in warehouse. And it can be one-to-n relationship. For example, there can be department, and we know that in one department there can be multiple employees. And so it's one-to-n. And there can also be n-to-n, many-to-many relationship. For example, any item to order, or for example, person can be for example, the company and the person. The person may work in different companies, for example, so it will be one-to-n, and also the company may have different employees, so it will be n-to-n, for example. So this is the relationship diagram, which allows us to show the relationship. Here's the example. How can we have a table of authors? Then we have the book. The book is linked to the publisher. So we have the fields which are linked to the content in different table. Yeah, customer is linked to the shopping basket. Then yeah, we have such linkages. You can check them out. So this is basically how the diagrams may look like. But yeah, the idea is we show the relationship between the tables, between the contents of the tables as well. Okay, and yeah, so we have the databases and we have the contents inside the databases. So what does it mean? The content, basically, these are the tables. We have the module of the table, and we have the columns, the fields of the table. As you can see here, we have the columns, and so each column has the content. And as for all the contents, we need to have the type. And then for each content, there are the type. For each column, there is the type defined. The same as for the variables in Java, we have the type. The same as for the content in database tables. So, and what are the types? Character, just one character. We can define the length of the character. Maybe, yeah. Let's maybe quickly show it here. Yeah, we can create a new database table. So what we can select here? We can select integer, just simple integer value, and we can also select the length of the integer value. So it can be different. And we can type that our integer value will not be greater than just three digits long. Then we have varchar, that's the text with limited number of characters, and in this case we show that our quickly type the field name. This will be the field. So in this case I show that the field name will be less than 40 characters long using varchar. Then the text, it's mostly unlimited. Yeah, it can be unlimited. Then the date, basically the way how we can store the date. And then we can have different numeric types. So for example, big integer, which is the big integer. So we can have just if one simple integer, basically it has more digits than, we can see here, so yeah. So if a simple integer is a 4-byte integer, we can see the range. Then big integer is 8-byte integer, so it has bigger range. And also different types, like real number, and it's the synonym for double. And maybe some exceptions, but this is not so important for us. And Boolean as well, date, timestamp. Yeah, we usually use timestamps for the dates, for example. Maybe nothing quite interesting here. For example, yeah, I will not create a database table. For example, we usually use timestamps, and the timestamps are the fields where the date is located plus the time code. And so we have the date, and then we have the time. We usually use minutes, hours, minutes, and seconds. So we have under the timestamp, we have basically the date and the time. Yeah, so different types can be used. We can check them all in the MySQL website. They are defined. And there can also be some constraints to ensure that it's set to ensure guarantee data integrity and data quality. So for example, if you have if you have the data which must be unique, then we define them as the keys. So we should not allow the data to be entered several times. For example, if we have persons with cannot have persons with same personal codes. For example, if you have a personal code in passport, then it is not possible to have another person with the same personal code. So that's why this must be unique, and yeah, it can be done differently. So you cannot have database of all the people in Latvia, for example. Then you know that there will not be multiple entries with the same personal code, for example. Yeah, so that's why we define primary key. So it means that this should be unique. And the foreign key means that so we have the column which the field. So it means that the field is linked to another table. Yeah, for example, there's the field name here, and and there's the table also with e-names. For example, like in this case, and it means that the column from this table must be linked to the column in another table. And that's why we can use foreign keys. Yeah. So table creation. Yeah, of course, if you use such tools like PHP admin or similar tools, then you can simply create the tables by typing on new. And the same way can also be done using the SQL query. And we can type the query and create the table. I'm going to do it right now. But yeah, it can be done. How can it be done? The table name can be specified as, so we need to specify. Yeah, what's the idea? The idea basically is if we have the connection to the server, to the server in general, then we can access any database table from here. And it can be accessed from different places, not only from here. We will see a little bit later. We can access using Java code, for example. Using Java code, we access the server, and then we just type the SQL queries. And using SQL queries, we can manage our databases. And yeah, so how to access to the database table? In general, we provide database table, database name, then we type dot, and we access table, exact table using name. So the name of the table should be unique for each database, and also database name should be unique as well. Yeah. So there are the permissions, different permissions for the user. Of course, if it means that if you access database from different places, from code, for example, then it should not normally be allowed to access this database from anywhere, and like not every person can access the database, and also not every person has the same permissions for the database table. Like not every person can change the database, not every person can read the database, and so on. Not any person can create database tables and so on. So basically, any permissions can be given to different users or different group of users. So this may be different. yeah. And there's a called thing indexes. This improves the performance of database for selecting data according to a specific criteria. Yeah, so index can be also, it's something similar to keys, but but yeah, it's mostly used for the performance. Yeah, we'll show maybe a little bit later. I'll show it a bit later how it works, but yeah, basically the idea is that it also is built from the different as the chain of different fields, and it mostly allows us to perform better. Yeah, and then there's a called thing data definition language. Yeah, it's for databases for creating, modifying, and renaming objects. Yeah, so basically here we talk about SQL syntax. And yeah, so these are the elements of SQL syntax. And basically if we work with, for example, again, PHP my admin, when we go to the database, then we have such options already here. So basically using these options we can build our SQL queries. And for example, insert, it already provides me the template. How can I write the SQL queries? Basically, what the SQL queries are, these are the things these are the query, the code, this is the code which allows us to work with the database. For example, I can insert some information to the database. Based on some conditions, I can delete some information, I can select some information, and so on. So I write kind of code, not kind of, this is the code, SQL code, and it shows me the exact result based on the code. For example, if I type some customer ID, moment, if I type some query where, for example, customer ID equals 2, then it selects it to be customer ID. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and now it selected me all the entries where the customer ID is 2. So this is basically SQL query. Using SQL query we can get the information we want. And so yeah, here there are different keywords, used to work with the databases. Yeah, first of all, related to data definition. So using create, alter, drop, rename, and truncate, we can basically define the tables, the objects in SQL databases. And then what I just shown you are the queries, the instructions using for data manipulation. These are select, insert, update, delete. So using these keywords we can, using select we can just read the data, get the data, and then using insert, update, delete, and merge we can change the content of the tables. And yeah, also there's such thing for control, for managing privileges. If we want to change the privileges for different user groups or users or user groups, then we can also use such keywords like grant and revoke. So yeah, here's the example how can we create the table. Maybe let me we use different we'll use different database. This one, maybe have some test databases, so maybe let's use them. Do it table, so do it here. And yeah, so here maybe let's paste this query and execute it. Oh yeah, so I executed and it created the table for me. So yeah, so this is the example how can we create the table. So basically what we have here, it asks, so we have the query to create the table, we provide the table name, and then we provide the fields of this table. We provide the details of each field. So first of all we have the name of the field, then we have the type of the field. Yeah, so if it's integer, basically most of the times we provide also the length of the field. In this case this will be 6. Then it shows unsigned, means that the integer will be assigned. Auto increment, this is really interesting thing. For example, let's create one insert query. Insert. So let's go inside the table. It will be easier to create insert query here. So yeah, let's insert query. I will not insert ID. I will insert some customers. Name one. Can we just no? Maybe let's just add some meaningful names. Okay. Check or something like that, and I will skip other values. So let's see right now. So I inserted one line, and you can see that I have not inserted ID. Yeah, I just type this code, but it automatically assigned 1 to this entry. So if I create another entry, then it should be 2. Okay. So the ID, this is the key field, but when we insert without providing the ID, what does it do? It automatically increments the ID by 1. This is what auto increment means. So the auto increment, we define that this key will automatically be incremented. And we can also see from the structure. The structure auto increment is defined here. And yeah, primary key it means that this must be the key. This is the key of our table. And then yeah, first name, then the type, and not null means that it should not be null. I'm not sure, for example, if we don't provide the last name, let's see. Yeah, it's not null. Yeah, comparing to other values can remain null, and last name is just empty string, empty space. And yeah, so you may ask what are the differences between null and not null. In fact, from SQL perspective, null means just empty string. Like in Java, we have empty string. and null is just like null. Same as for same again as I said, same as in Java. We have strings. String maybe string variable maybe just empty string, and null. Same as for SQL. Yeah, this means empty string, and null means just nothing. Yeah, absolutely nothing. Yeah, and so it means that, and this empty space is also considered as the value. Yeah, and in some cases, for example, if we are not inside the database, in this case we are in the database, but if we call SQL Server directly from the database, then it also depends on the place where we call our server, where we call our script. So here we need to provide the database name. So I will so the database name is test, and I'll create another table. Let's execute. Let's refresh, and now we have another table. Yeah. So if we are not on the database level, then we can also provide the database to understand that we are currently writing the query for this particular database. Yeah. And yeah, so here we can have some actions with the table. This is what I said, for example. Here we can see the query, describe customer, so it actually shows all the values, the structure of the customer table. Yeah, maybe let's quickly run this SQL query. Run database. Search. Customer. So it described the table. So it just showed me all the ones. Basically everything what we see here, the structure of the database, the structure of database table, everything here is done using SQL queries, as you can see from here. The structure, in fact, structure is also is shown using the query. So basically everything what we do here is done using the queries. So using the script we can basically show a table and the table structure. And yeah, to add new column we can use alter table, and it adds us new column. We can do it. Let's go to the database table level. So here we want table name, customer. Let's go to customer, and we can see that now we have another column, name, customer address. So this is what we added using an SQL query. Yeah. So this is an alter table. We can also add some parameters to the new fields. So it can also be done. Yeah, we can also delete column. Example, yeah, using alter table. So customer drop column, yeah, using drop column syntax we can delete the column, so it's not here anymore. can rename the corresponding column, so like in this case from customer to customer new. So just the column will be named. Yeah, so lots of actions can be done using SQL queries. And really important thing, maybe the last thing we have today, but yeah, this is quite interesting topic, and yeah, maybe some, not some, but usually those who start working with the programming, then for those it's a little bit at first point it's a little bit tricky to understand this topic, but it's really important, and especially if we talk about the performance, this topic about the session is really important. And so yeah, let's start. Basically, yeah, what we have such thing like session. What does it mean? It means that we start doing something and we finish doing something, and this period from the beginning till the end is called session. And so it's basically the we can call it the thread, where we do the actions. So the same is for the database. There's session from the database where we start doing our operations with the database and we finish doing our operations with the database. Yeah. And for database, there are some such things like commit and rollback. What does it mean? So we have, first of all, about the transactions. We do some transactions. For example, we change the tables, different tables. We change them. We change one table, then we change another table, and so on and so on. And at the end, we've done all the things we wanted to do. And we have two options. We can roll back or we can commit. If we do roll back, it means that all the changes we done during the session will be missed. So yeah, we don't need these changes. We just roll back. But if we do commit, it means that the changes will be applied, and yeah, so the changes will be applied and the session will be over. So yeah, it's shown here. We have one operation, like insert into one table, then we have another operation, for example, insert into another table or change the previous record, so on and so on. And so we can have n operations. At the end we commit, means that all the changes will be applied. If we do rollback, it means that all the changes from the operation 1, operation 2 will be missed. Yeah. So these are the things. And when we will work with the databases in Java, so-called Java database connectivity, we will see what are the differences, basically how can we use commits and rollbacks. And this is really important for the performance. Just a quick overview how it can affect the performance. The idea is that basically you have the database, and but you understand that you write the code in one place, so your code is executed from some place, and then you have the database, but the database is located somewhere else. It can be, usually it's the server, and the server is somewhere in different place, so you need to access the database, you need to log into the database, you need to find for the right data, and usually when we talk about the databases, then there are thousands of lines of data, for example, each table. If we can imagine that we have data of all the persons in Latvia, then for example, then there are under 2 million entries for each person, then some linkages to other tables, also millions of entries. Then imagine that we need to work with all this data. And the idea is, imagine that every time you change this data, you access data, you are searching for some data, And of course, if you change the database tables directly every time, then it takes a lot of time. And it's not so efficient to change the data every time. So that's why we have a session. We start the session, we do all our operations, then we execute commit. It means that now all the changes will be actually applied to the real database, and everything will be fixed in this database. One specific state. If we roll back, it means that all the changes we've done will not be applied to the database, so we don't touch the database. Okay, in this case, we don't spend the time. Yeah, imagine if we don't have commit and rollback, it actually means that every time the database will actually be changed. So imagine you have a database with millions of entries, then every time change this database will hit the performance, will definitely hit the performance. Users will not be satisfied. But yeah, this is a thing to think about before until next session. But right now we can stop at this point, and we'll continue on Friday. So thank you for your attention today, and meet you on Friday. Bye.